Hello Chassos, welcome to another video where we are going to be talking about the World Championships of Warhammer and the FAQ that they brought out specifically. Now, I wanted to do this as I've seen in a number of places, first and foremost, that people have been claiming that this isn't a real FAQ and they're not going to be playing it in their games and whatever else. I don't know the mental gymnastics that a lot of people are getting up to and trying to argue that these different things don't affect their games and they're not real. This FAQ came from GW. And I think that anybody that doesn't think that this is, even if this doesn't apply to the rest of the game, that this isn't a direct expression of intent from the studio that makes our game. And it targets some of the most divisive things that I've been seeing around the internet and clears up some of those interactions. Now, some of them are good, some of them maybe not so much, and they unnecessarily nerf armies that didn't need it, or are very unintuitive in the way that they've done it. But if anything, that just more should solidify to you that this is actually GW, as they have been rife with decisions like that across multiple iterations of the game as a whole. Now, the main purpose of this video, aside from I guess putting my own 2 cents in on whether this is real or not, or whether this should affect people's games, which, spoiler, I do believe it should, is to go through and let you know some of the things that will affect you from this FAQ and the way that you play your games, because it's as tournament players, and that's the caveat I have to put in every single one of my videos. All of my content is aimed at people that want to be tournament players, want to go from bottom tables to mid tables to high tables, or start winning GTs or majors. And understanding more than just your army is actually incredibly important. So I wanted to go through this and just go point by point in a very condensed format, give you a TLDR, and make it so that if you're not somebody who really ever reads anything because it's boring as hell, and I don't blame you, we can go through it and get you up to speed and then get you on your merry way, having a grand old time. And if you are following any of the stuff from the World Championship of Warhammer, you know the conditions that the players are playing under, and it'll mean that it's easier for you to be able to, out of context, glean some of the things these players might be doing, how they're winning their games, why they're running things in their list, so on and so forth, and then be able to put that into your game. Now, before I get into the video proper, just a quick word. This video is sponsored by myself. We recently launched our website with merch and everything else. We have been very, very excited about it. And even more exciting for us, we have produced through a local designer and 3D printer a set of 3 tokens that allow you to track your For the Greater Good rule, making it very, very clear from anywhere on the table. So stick around at the end of the video if you'd like to find out how to support me and my channel more. All right, so let's get into the FAQ. Now, the first one, this is literally just to target things that could apply multiple iterations of Battle Shock, or more specifically, Battle Shocking somebody in the same point of the game that they would have to make a Battle Shock test if they were under half strength. It has been clarified that you no longer have to make 2 rolls, you only make the 1. Now, this does nerf Tyranids and Chaos Knights specifically. Chaos Knights who probably didn't need the nerf, as they are sitting, last I checked, very comfortably inside the delta of, the 45 to 55% win rate that GW is such a fan of. But it clears that up, so there are no more arguments from a Tyranid or Chaos Knight player who's trying to get away with something. Interestingly enough, one of the Chaos Knights players I played at the last RTT that I won was actually saying that this was a discussion within the CK Discord, and they like to play it as this FAQ has said, because the other way just seemed a little bit gamey and they weren't really a fan of it. So interesting to see that there are some people from that faction that didn't actually like trying to exploit the way that wasn't obviously the intent of GW, which is fantastic. The second is clearing up the out-of-phase rules, because I know that some people have had a little bit of trouble with this. Out-of-phase rules are things that apply during a specific phase and aren't used outside of it. And the example on this is firing Overwatch with the big guns never tire, or the pistol rule. Now, other people were saying, well, if we're not doing anything out of phase, blah, 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 then I can't use Melter, I can't whatever. But that is not the case. Melter is a modifier on a gun. It is not actually a rule that applies to a specific phase. Melter is something that every time you fire, you use, if you're within half range, you do X amount of extra damage. Rapid fire, you only need to be within half range and it triggers. It's a rule on the weapon, not something which requires a phase, with which both big guns never tire and pistol weapons have, that they are during the shooting phase. Well, specifically your shooting phase. What this does is just means that when you are looking at charging or being charged, you need to be very, very sure that you can see somebody at the start of their charge move, because you will not be able to overwatch when they finish the move. This is obviously a pretty big nerf to, let's say, the pistol flamers. For, I think, Gen Steel Occults and a few other armies have access to that sort of thing. Not that people were specifically building around that, but it was very, very strong, and you wouldn't want to charge an infantry unit, for example, especially a one wound unit, into tie something up or into a land raider, because there was a chance that with enough volume of fire, that land raider could just pick everything up and go about its merry way. Hey everybody, Jay from the future here. While I was editing the video, I realized that there were some things that I needed to put into this part of the video that I forgot about when I was talking during the FAQ. The first thing that I want to put in there is that there are some places, including a Goonhammer article that I was looking up when I was doing all of my prior research to actually do this video and make sure everything I was saying was correct and whatever else, where they claim that units that are not the charge target can still overwatch a monster when it finishes its charge move, or a vehicle for that matter. But I actually just looked it up. That is still part of the big guns never tire rule. So there is no world where you can overwatch a unit when it finishes its charge move. You have to do it at the start, unless there is some thing that specifically states that you are allowed to do that. It's all part of big guns never tire. The other part, for my Tau brethren, what up, Shas? Our army rule, I just looked up the exact wording on it. Our guiding is the thing that we do in our shooting phase. Our sustained hits 1 is something that is always on regardless of phase. There is no phase mentioned in the rule, which means you will still get exploding sixes from turn 3 onwards, or turn 2 from Exemplar of the Cao Yun. I just thought I'd throw that in there because the internet has a habit of getting things mixed up and people don't have a reflex of reading stuff for themselves off the bat. So I figured I'd say it and just make sure that there was no problems there. All right, back to the vid. I will also be making another video talking about the Overwatch phase, because it is very, very different from what we were used to in 9th. And there's a lot of stuff that we can do to take advantage of that, which is really great. But that'll be a conversation for another time. Just remember, big guns never tire, and pistol rules are not used during Overwatch. So, when a unit counts as having made a move of any kind due to an effect, has that unit made a move for the purposes of ability that trigger at the start or end of a move? No. Now, this is really, really big for things like demons or for Gen Steel Occults, as they have abilities that allow them to show up very, very close, or within the sort of bracket of things like, for example, a Ranger Squad from Eldari. They no longer using these rules that allow them to get set up and count as having made a move, which is within the rules of deep striking or strategic reserve or whatever abilities let you do this sort of thing. They don't then get to move. You don't get to trigger based off that. And so what this means is that armies that have taken nerfs in the past or had these rules working against them now have a decent way to keep that 6-inch charge for Chaos Demons, for example, or having Gen Steel Occults show up within 3, and then not having a unit move behind a wall so they can't shoot them, or wrap them so they can't, do what they want to do. Now, importantly, this does not affect Overwatch, because Overwatch actually has a specific line which says when a unit is set up, you can Overwatch them. So that isn't affected by it. This is just around, so far as I can tell, I've tried to have a little bit of a look, but it's mostly that I move when a unit moves within range of me. Okay, this one. This basically made me throw out an entire 30 minutes of footage that was 75% edited, which I was very sad about. I was making a video on transports arriving from reserves and being able to get people out, specifically for our breaches, being able to take objectives from the side of the board. You were able to step onto those objectives when you got out of a devilfish on any mission. I tested on every single mission, and you could come on from the side of the board, stand on it, and you were absolutely fine to take that objective away. Not to mention being able to shoot and whatever else, and you're within 6 inches of your target, because the devilfish lands outside of 9, and then they get out 3, and because they weren't the deep striking or strat reserve unit, they are a disembarking unit. They had no such restrictions. This is now dead. You cannot do it, so I had to throw the video out. It would have been a really, really bad idea for me to release that one anyway. So that rule is now gone. Now, there were some people that I saw were doing this with things like Land Raiders to try and get closer charges. And I think that's the reason this has gone away. If it was just, us breaches doing it, or, Drukhari trying to come in on one of their boats and just kind of shoot or whatever after getting out, though I think they have fire deck anyway, so it doesn't really affect them. I don't think it would have been a problem, but people being able to game the 9-inch rule to get closer charges probably would have been pretty obnoxious. So I can see why they got rid of this, but yeah. Models equipped with one-shot weapons. It is now clarified that when a unit with a firing deck shoots with a one-shot weapon, you have functionally selected a model within the transport and used its weapon, and that weapon is now gone. You can no longer double dip to get one-shot weapons. I think that this was probably people reading the rules a little bit too closely to try and do this, or looking for ambiguity. And don't get me wrong, that happens all the time. It happened with our greater good rule. There was a bunch of arguing that was happening about that. But now that argument is dead. Whenever you fire a one-shot weapon and get into a transport, that transport can't then count as equipped with that one-shot weapon. It is gone and done. Or if you're in a transport and the transport fires it with firing deck, you then don't get out, because the wording on it was that the transport was counted as equipped with those weapons. And so the argument was that because the transport was equipped with it, not the model anymore, the model gets out and he's equipped with his own. And yeah. And you can kind of see how that, even though rules as written was correct, that seems like a gamey way to get extra use out of one-shot weapons. And obviously there are armies that use that better than others, which also creates a very, very heavy skew towards units that can do that, or even have firing deck as part of their unit. As part of their army. Melter ability. Now, this one I saw a literal ton of people arguing about in a bunch of the competitive team chats that I'm a part of within New South Wales. I'm glad I don't have to look at this anymore. Melter is now a modifier that happens in mathematical order. And for anybody who's not familiar with your high school mathematics, you always do multiplication, division, then addition, then subtraction. At least I think that's the order. But at the very least, it's always multiplication and division before you do addition and subtraction. And so what this functionally means is that for, let's say, our ghost kills, you set the damage to 0 first, then the melter is added as a modifier afterwards, which means that our stealth drones just got significantly worse, because if something's got like a knight with melter 6, you're still taking 6 damage even if you blank off the main shot. So just be aware of that one. Don't let people discount you being able to use your melter. It is now a modifier after the fact. Stratagems for 0 CP, being able to use command reroll. This was some weird wording that meant that CP rerolls didn't actually target a unit, which was kind of dumb. So now people that had 0 CP abilities must be nice. I'm a Tau player. Now functionally you are able to use them on a unit and get it for 0 CP. So just drives up the value of some of those units that have been balanced around that 0 CP ability. When things went to only being able to use battle tactics, there were a ton of things that got taken off the option list. And a lot of those models fell from grace because there was nothing good to spend it on anymore. All right, the next one was a very, very fun one, because there were a number of people from my team that I actually sort of keyed onto this, and they were still in the 9th mindset where nothing comes on the first turn. But it's very specific wording, which is, for example, my Knights player has I think it's an enhancement that they can take it off the board and then they show up in their next movement phase. It's not if, it's not whatever, it is place them on the table during your next movement phase. And GW have clarified those abilities allow you to bypass the no deep striking first turn. Now, it does say it does not allow other abilities like Chaos Bikers outmaneuver, Hearthkin Pioneers outflanking, Mag Riders, Scout Squads, Guerrilla Tactics to arrive from Strat Reserve during the first battle round. This is specific things that will say unit will return in the reinforcement step of your next movement phase. So it's very specific wording that does it. Make sure you read your rules, but there are a lot of abilities that are allowed to do this. It's very powerful, and it means that you need to know how to screen effectively. And if you'd like to see how to screen effectively, Jay put a little thing up so they can click it. All right, some abilities, Strands of Fate, Acts of Faith occur before making a dice roll. Can such an ability be used as part of a reroll? Now, funnily enough, channel that needs no credit from me, but I really love watching Tabletop Tactics. The Jinx was on playing her sisters for, I think it was actually the first time on camera that she had been able to use them. And she was doing her Acts of Faith stuff, but explicitly said, I can't use this as part of a reroll. And that was kind of the, I guess, assumed thing up until that point. It does make things like Strands of Fate better than it already is, which, I guess it's better now and you can do that. It does mean that if you're smart with how you do your dice rolls and you've got certain things that can allow a reroll, especially for free, you can, with like a big weapon like a Bright Lance, you can roll to see if you hit, and if you don't, then you use a fate dice to guarantee the hit. And same with the wound roll. If the other two hit, or you hit on the first go of it, and you didn't have to use a fate dice, you roll to wound, and then if you fail that one, you just go, cool, bang, here's my 6. And you're probably using that on a weapon that's got like devastating wounds or whatever, because that's all throughout the Eldari Codex. Must be nice. So this basically is just, it is a nice buff to them. I wonder if we're going to see this affect Sisters more than Eldari, but I doubt it. Sisters are nowhere near as popular. So we'll probably see an uptick in Eldari being able to use that. It is something that in the hands of a very good player will turn key moments in a game and allow them to get more mileage out of their army than a player that doesn't think about their order of operations properly. If a unit with the Infiltrator's ability uses it during a redeploy, can you infiltrate? No. So this basically means wherever you put down your scouts, if you are going to pull them up using a redeploy, they go back into your deployment zone. You do not get to put them further out. Now, redeploys are no longer near as powerful as they were at 9th, and they're not nearly as prevalent to my knowledge. So this probably won't really affect anything. But I know that in 9th, we were allowed to do this with the example of the Cao Yun redeploy we had with stealth suits that infiltrated forward. Some units like Mortarion, this is the modifying characteristics. This one's an interesting one, as abilities allow them to ignore modifiers to the characteristics of weapons. No, so it means that things can use Armor of Contempt. You can have your ballistic skill and your weapon skill modified by Death Guard, because those characteristics are on the weapon, not on you as a unit. But rules as written, I'm pretty sure there's a line that says the weapons that are equipped with count as their characteristics, but whatever. They have put a stop to that. Weapon characteristics do not get to ignore modifiers because of the abilities up here. So this is a straight nerf to the people that they have listed, basically Mortarion, Trajan, Grey Knights, Grey Masters, Leagues of Votann models with Grim Demeanor. So yeah, make sure you're across that. It also means that if you're going into those matchups, you can modify Trajan's unit with minus damage on his attacks, or if you're one of those lucky enough to have an Armor of Contempt like stratagem, you can use that. Some abilities that give CP at the start of controlling player's command phase, they call out specifically things like Path of Command, Lord Solar, Hive Commander, etc. Do they count towards the limit, gaining 1 CP per battle round? Yes. I'm not sure why anybody was confused about this. The abilities that don't contribute to it actually have a specific line saying this does not count towards the CP you generate for this battle round. Weird that they had to include that, but I guess there were arguments happening over it, so now it's squashed, which if it stops arguments, then, that's great. Now, the big one for Tau players. If a unit that contains a character, monster, or vehicle model fails several hazardous tests at the same time, how are the effects of those failed tests applied? Functionally, you pick one model and keep allocating until that model is dead. And then once that model is dead, you keep going until there are no more hazardous tests or mortal wounds to allocate left. What this means, and in a weird way, there were two iterations of the rule that people were kicking around with. One was that if you hazardous on a commander, he is the one that has to take all of the mortal wounds if he fails any of them. Or there are other people that were like, I can splash mortal wounds around on the entire unit, or like do 6 on a commander with 7 wounds. So he goes down to 1, but then I do the rest on a crisis suit. And so, those 6 mortal wounds, instead of killing one of my suits, I have a functional commander still around. And then I've got 6 fully firing crisis suits. So this gets rid of both of those. Because when you can just overcharge with the entire unit, including the commander, and just allocate any fails to a crisis suit and then keep going down from there. So it brings up anybody that was playing it in that iteration, which was actually kind of nerfing themselves. And the people that were buffing themselves by spreading it around can no longer do that anyway. This is a good expression of intent, and I'm glad that they have clarified this. And that is our FAQ. Very, very short, very simple. I'm really glad that they've put out something like this in anticipation of what is likely going to be the biggest event of the year, not because of its size or anything else, but because this is the highest ranked people in the world going there and battling it out with, like, they're in pods to start with on Art of War. They had an incredible breakdown of all of the pods. So you had on a stream, there was Jack Harpster and Quinton that were going through the entire thing. Really, really great chat. Go and check them out, where they go through all the pods and all the players and lists they're running, and a breakdown of how they chose their own lists and, what they're expecting, and Quinton's woes about being in a pod from hell, including Australia's own Liam Hackett, who I had the pleasure of playing against at a teams tournament not too long ago. So to look at this tournament, especially after seeing the pods and everything else and how it shakes out, this is some of the best players in the world that are going to be doing this. I don't actually know if anybody's going to be streaming at this point. I imagine that Wargamers Live might be the one to stream it, but I'm not going to say 100% as I don't know. But if you have the opportunity to watch any of those games, definitely do it, because improving yourself as a player is looking at what the best players are doing and then trying to replicate and learn why they're doing it, so then you can do it comfortably in the future. And that's everything from me. On to how you can support me and my channel, and the best way to do that is to go to pantheonstudios.com.au and pick yourself up some merch. We have everything from shirts, hoodies, coasters. Hell, we've even got RGB mouse mats you can pick up with some custom designs that we have created. And most importantly, we have, which has just gone live, the greater good tracking tokens, which you will have 3 in each set for guided, spotted, and spotter unit. These tokens lay down on the table, are clear and easy to see, and allow you and your opponent to know at all stages who has been a guider, who has been guided, and which target they were shooting at, eliminating arguments on the table and make it so that you don't have to think more during the shooting phase than you have to. To already have to throw a bucket of dice, and shooting phase is the longest phase that we have. Don't make it any longer. Head to the website, pick yourself up a set or 5. Thank you very much to everybody who has already expressed interest in these and people that have already bought some. The initial release of these tokens is a limited 50 set. Once we have an expression of interest and how much people want to get their hands on these, we will be commissioning more to get created. So if you are interested in these, and even if you can't pick up some now, there is my email in the link in the description. You can send through an expression of interest for those tokens. We will look at getting some more made up, printed, and painted. And as always, thank you very much to all of my patrons who make all of my videos possible. To join these incredible individuals and get access to the Pantheon Studios Discord, there are 2 ways you can go about it. Either head to patreon.com/Pantheon Studios Australia, or hit that join button just below in YouTube, and that both will get you access to the Discord, as well as being able to be a part of the community and get access to things like coaching or having a game against me on Tabletop Simulator from anywhere that you are in the world. Thank you very much to all of my incredible patrons. You guys drive me forward, and I'm so appreciative to everybody, past, present, and future, that has joined us on this road. Hopefully, all of this has been really good information for everybody, and it has been succinct enough that you didn't switch off. Thank you for everybody who has made it to the end of the video. I'm very, very much looking forward to creating some more content. We have some very, very good stuff to get you on the tabletop winning more games. If you're not subscribed already, do the internet things, like and share and whatever else. Or don't. I'm not your dad. Thank you very much, Chassos, and I'll see you in the next one.